Most people dealing with plantar fasciitis, heel pain, or recurring foot and lower limb pain have usually been given a bunch of things to try. Stretch your calves, roll your foot on a ball, maybe strengthening your feet, changing your shoes, or adding more support. And look, those things can definitely help calm down symptoms, but what often gets missed is what's actually driving the real problem. Because when I watch people walk all day for work, I rarely see a simple strength or flexibility issue. What I see is usually a stability and coordination problem. The stabilizing muscles switch off, the foot and hip stop working together, and the body starts compensating. When those patterns happen thousands of times a day while walking, something eventually gets overloaded. For some people that shows up as plantar fasciitis, for others it might be things like Achilles pain, shin pain, knee pain, hip irritation, or back pain. The location of the pain might change, but the movement pattern behind it is often very similar. So I want to show you 3 quick movement checks that you can try at home right now. They're simple, but they can reveal some of the stability and compensation patterns that I see all the time. Check number 1. All right, so the first check is simply seeing what your big toe can do. The big toe is one of the main stabilizers of the foot when we walk, but a lot of people lose the ability to move it independently and control it. So let's try this. So stand barefoot. Now try lifting just your big toe while keeping the other 4 toes down on the ground. We're then going to try the opposite. We're going to keep the big toe down and lift the other 4 toes. Now don't worry if that feels awkward. Most people are surprised how hard this actually is. Now if the toes barely move or they start clawing and gripping, that's often a sign the stabilizing muscles in the foot aren't coordinating properly. And if the big toe isn't doing its job, it usually means it's not helping activate or stabilize the rest of the system. When that happens, the body often starts compensating when you walk. Instead of loading and pushing off through the big toe, your body will start avoiding it and often collapsing in, which can create imbalances in the foot and further up the chain. And eventually, that's where pain often starts showing up. Movement check number 2. All right, now let's see what happens when the leg actually starts taking load. We're going to stand on one leg because walking is a series of single leg balances. So in this position, your foot, leg, and hip are all working together to create stability. Now we're going to hold this position for a few seconds and notice what your foot's doing. Is your big toe helping you stabilize? Or do you feel like the smaller toes are starting to grip the ground to create that balance? Does your foot feel stable or is it wobbly and lacking control? Now, if you're in control and stable here, let's try adding a small single leg squat. We're just going to bend the knee that we're standing on and pay attention to what happens. Now, are you in control of this movement? Does the knee feel strong or is it falling inwards? And is the arch collapsing and the foot's twisting in, hips dropping? If so, those are signs that the chain is not working well. When that leg collapses inward like that, the arch often flattens and the body starts to avoid stabilizing through that big toe, which makes it harder to create stability through the foot. Now this also tends to put more pressure through the knee and often switches off the glutes, which helps support and stabilize the whole leg. So instead of that load being shared through the whole chain, the body starts compensating for this lack of stability. And when this pattern repeats thousands and thousands of times a day when we're walking, the foot starts taking more force and is stuck in positions that it's not meant to be in. So if you're finding it hard to control this movement in this static kind of controlled environment, then imagine trying to control this time and time again when we're walking throughout our day. And finally, movement check number 3. Now, let's look at what happens when you actually take a step. We're going to start with our feet together. We're now going to take a slow step forward and pause. We're then going to take one more step forward and pause again here and see how balanced you feel. Now this position is similar to the moment in walking when your body moves over the front leg. So just hold this position for a second and notice what you feel on that foot that's out behind us. First, notice the foot. Does your big toe back there bend, and does it stay connected and feel like it's supported and stable in this position? Or does it feel like the foot wants to kind of roll around that big toe or avoid it? Are the little toes gripping or clawing to try and create stability? Now notice the hip. Do you feel your glute engaging and helping push you forward in that movement? Does that step forward feel strong and supported? Or does it feel more like that calf, quad and knee are pulling you through the movement? Is your knee on that back leg locking to create stability? And some people also notice a feeling of tightness in the front of that hip, which can also limit how easily that leg moves behind you. Now, a lot of people realize here that this step actually feels quite passive. The foot isn't really helping. The glute isn't driving you forward. The body is just finding a way to get the step done. And this is the important point, because your body will always keep you moving forward. But if the system isn't stable and coordinated, it will do that through compensation and even through pain. And when that compensation happens thousands and thousands of times a day while walking, that stress ends up being absorbed somewhere else. For some people that shows up as heel pain, for others it might show up as Achilles pain, maybe knee pain, hip pain, even back pain. Because if the system isn't moving with stability and coordination, the load has to go somewhere else. That friction has to be absorbed somewhere. And over time, that's where pain will often begin. So the pain might show up in the foot, but the real issue is often a disconnect in the movement chain. The stabilizers switch off, the leg loses control, and the hip stops sharing the load. So the body compensates. And when those compensations happen thousands of times a day while walking, eventually something gets overloaded, which is why treating the symptoms alone doesn't always cut it or solve the problem. You have to restore the movement pattern driving it. One of the most useful things that I can do for people dealing with recurring foot pain is simply look at how they walk. There are a few patterns I'm usually watching for, things like rolling off around the big toe, clawing the knees, collapsing inwards or a shortened stride. And each Thursday, I review a handful of walking clips and point out what I see. I usually only get through around 5. So if you'd like me to take a look at yours, just send me through a 10-second video of you walking barefoot away from the camera and then back towards the camera again. And if there's space that week, I'll give you some feedback, but it is first in, first served. Your body usually doesn't break randomly, it compensates first. So if we change the compensation, then things often start improving. Sometimes the smallest change in how the foot and hip work together can make a huge difference. Now, if you want one of those free spots, just send your clip through using the link below, or message the video directly to me on Facebook or Instagram at The Barefoot Podiatrist, and I'll personally review it and give you some feedback so you can understand what's really going on and start trusting your feet again.